Attention 21st century, today's episode of 20th Century Pop ruins the 2-decade mystery of just what was in the original The Matrix. Thank you for not laughing during that, because I felt like a douche reading my one note.
It's not laughable. That's some serious shit.
I think so. He's ruining a mystery. That shit's serious. Hey everyone and welcome to 20th Century Pop in 2019. Happy New Year. Dumb start to the show. I'm sorry.
That's not dumb. It is the New Year. And people are going to be listening to this like 2 or 3 weeks into the New Year. So Happy New Year.
Happy New Year on the show.
Who are you? Did you say who you were?
Who am I? How am I or who am I?
Let's do both of that. Let's first say who you are and then tell me how you are.
Well, I'm Tim Blevins.
And how are you, Tim?
Well, you know, I fucked up the opening. I'm sorry. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I didn't get to say the tagline. The whole show where we try to understand the present while living in the past. Because I was so excited.
I thought 2019 was the year of no tagline.
No, I think you're thinking of 2022. That's what they're predicting. No taglines in 2022. And the rivers will be gone. I don't know. I'm trying to think of disaster. And who am I talking to? Tell them.
Oh, hi. I'm Bob Canning, and I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
For 2019.
For 2019. Yeah, it's our big first show of the new year, I guess.
Yeah. And we're keeping it consistent.
We are. With our previous, we've only had one other first show. We've had 2 first shows of the new year. This is our 3rd year. We're going into our 3rd season. We have about a third of the audience that we started out with. So all of those things are bringing you this. An episode where we're actually doing a segment that we haven't done. I think we did once last year, and a segment that I was very proud of when I came up with the title for it those many years ago. We're doing a segment today called EFFIN Spoilers.
Yeah.
And Bob, what is that segment? Besides an amazing pun.
EFFIN Spoilers is where we discuss from our current viewpoint, a TV show or a movie that had a twist to it that at the time wouldn't really have been spoiled because the internet wasn't as prominent and you weren't really going to be open to learning about the ending or the twist prior to actually seeing it, which is kind of a different thing today. It takes effort to avoid spoilers now. And so it's our look back at when it was easier to be surprised and how that works and did it work and how do we react to it now? Is that about right?
That is right. I think that's right. Do you think it is harder for a casual film goer or someone who isn't visiting all the entertainment websites or someone who maybe isn't a pop culture fanatic, like just people going to movies? Do you think it is very hard to not have something spoiled still, or do you think it's because we happen to visit these websites and because we know comic books and because you're surrounded with people in the industry as friends and coworkers, you're in the industry yourself.
Yeah.
Do you think that plays into it, or do you think it is really harder now to go into a movie and be surprised by it?
Well, that's an excellent point. I guess you're right. I guess if you're more casual, you are going to have a better chance of being surprised. But I just feel like there are fewer and fewer casual, and maybe we really need to categorize what that means. Like, I think my mother would be surprised. I don't think she's getting anything spoiled. If she goes to see something that has a twist, I doubt my mother would be aware of it. But I think my kids who aren't necessarily into pop culture the way that you and I are now, and they're certainly not on the internet. I'm not giving them that sort of freedom yet. But I still think they're kind of aware. I think people talk. I think somebody else who is into it and might figure it out or has an in or has a family member who has seen it or a friend who's already seen it. I think people just talk more often about that stuff freely, loosely. So I think the number of casual viewers that can still be surprised is smaller today than it was back in the 90s and 80s.
And this is a roundabout way, I guess, to get to today's topic, which today, what are we talking about today?
The Matrix. Or more specifically, what is the Matrix?
what is 1999's The Matrix? And I mean, I think by now The Matrix is pretty well known. I think everyone has seen it. Or if they haven't seen it, I think similar to the way we can talk about Jaws, the way we could talk about Blade Runner maybe before we saw it. Like it's in the consciousness. It impacted and changed or opened up some eyes or altered cinema in a lot of ways in 1999 when it came out. And yet, it's not based on a comic book. It's not based on a pre-existing story. It wasn't brought to us by directors that people really knew. They had done Bound, the two Wachowskis. They had both made the movie Bound, but it wasn't a known film, and it wasn't known characters, and it wasn't something that I knew a lot about. And again, 1999, we used the internet. Yeah. I mean, we used email. I think we looked at stuff, but this movie, and it came out, I think, in March. I apologize. I'm very unprepared here. But how did you first hear about The Matrix? Prior to it opening, did you know it was coming out? What did you know about this movie?
I knew it was a sci-fi movie. I saw the commercials on TV. I think I was going to
Super Bowl commercials. Is that the first time you saw a commercial for it?
You know, I can't tell you for sure. I was going to the movies more often then, so I might have seen a trailer before I saw a commercial. But I don't have a perfect recollection of when The Matrix entered my life.
Were you interested in it?
Absolutely, I was. I was very much interested in seeing it. Yes. It looked cool. A sci-fi action movie. It was my thing that time of my life.
Leading up to it, I had no sense of it being a big deal. I had no sense of it being something I would even see. And again, I saw the commercials. I do think it was a Super Bowl commercial. We, for this episode, watched the original trailer, which we'll link in the show notes.
Yeah, and I can't wait to talk about that. I have some interest.
Well, let's talk about that. Okay. Then, because again, it's one of those things like Star Wars, like Transformers, like Michael Jackson. Like it's hard to imagine a time when the stuff was brand new. What is the original trailer for? Like the way the Matrix was introduced, at least to myself, because I wasn't keen that much in internet culture where I was getting any website or anything on it. What's in the trailer? What is this trailer for this movie?
To me, it is a lot more than I thought it was going to be. So I haven't rewatched this trailer in forever. So rewatching it, if this is the very first trailer, I was shocked by how much they actually reveal.
Oh, really?
In this trailer. Yeah. I mean, but again, this is me knowing the movie. I guess if you don't know it, you don't know what any of it means. Having known the movie, there's a lot more clues and obvious thing. At least now they seem obvious than at the time. I mean, literally saying, at one point he's like, "Welcome to the real world." That's a huge line, which you wouldn't think would be in a trailer where you're trying to hide what the Matrix is. That's a very large, big clue. And you tied in.
If you know what the Matrix is.
I guess if you know what the Matrix is, but I think also if you're trying to. I wasn't the type, and I still am not the type, to see something like that and then try to decode it and figure it out. I'm not the person that's going to look at the latest Avengers trailer and go shot by shot and character by character and see who's in the background and try and piece things together.
But here's why it's good. You are the person who saw it. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you and I weren't hackers, weren't computer users the way that maybe this movie appeals to. So going into a movie where we haven't seen something represent. I mean, Dark City did it a couple years prior to Matrix. By the way, if I assume everyone listening knows what the Matrix is, I will get to it if you don't. But coming to this movie, I mean, you didn't know what it was about.
No.
You didn't know that it was going to be about this computer reality in the real world. I mean, what are things that look familiar in this trailer to you? Like, for me, it was like, well, I know who Keanu Reeves is.
Yeah.
He's the action star from Speed.
No, I mean, what grabbed me was just the visuals. Obviously, I mean, it's just, you have high-flying leaps, you have machine guns, you've got bricks and mortar getting flown everywhere by people punching them. You've got running, you've got just all sorts of cool leather and sunglasses and double-fisted guns pointed right at you. It's just a lot of excitement, a lot of cool action.
For me, this was the era of like John Woo coming to America.
Sure.
Like the year before, I think what's the movie Face Off came out, and I remember a couple years before that I didn't see them, but in college everybody had like Hard Boiled and some of his other movie posters up in their room. The 90s was a big thing for cool guys with guns, which is kind of obnoxious, but posing and a lot, and bringing in kung fu and karate into movies, and like you're saying, everything you're describing, the bricks flying, maybe some slow-mo kicks.
And then the bullet time was in there too.
Well, the bullet, we'll get to that because that was new.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things, that's probably one of the things I was like, what the fuck am I looking at? But coming to this movie at a time where we're in the 90s and we've gotten through the Tarantino, and we're in the second wave of Tarantino impersonators, and we've still got the macho, overly steroid-driven action movies. We got Michael Bay coming up and stuff like that. We've got people... we got Antonio Banderas, shuddering a bit when he cocks his gun in the Desperado trailer. We got people always pointing at the screen. We have an era of glorification of guns and ammo and long coats. We had the trench coat mafia frighteningly moving, in conspiracy circles at the time. We have all these ideas in our head. And so to see this trailer where it's people jumping around, it's people with sunglasses, people with long coats, that didn't look new to me. That looked like a kind of stylized what people thought was cool, or some people thought was cool in the 90s. It just looked like a gun-toting action movie. Jean-Claude Van Damme could have been making this. Steven Seagal, 6 years earlier, could have been making this. That alone wouldn't have sold me on the movie, and yet that's what I think is in the trailer. Like, before we get to the couple elements in it that I think are more about what the movie's about. I mean, some of it looked a little generic to me at the time. Like, were you excited by the idea of it coming out at the time?
Yeah, I was. It was a movie I was interested in I was a fan of some of that macho, gun-toting, action movies. Big fan.
I'm not saying I wasn't. I definitely saw it. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I saw a lot.
Yeah, we've talked about Die Hard. I like Die Hard a lot. Terminator 2 especially was one of my favorite movies around that era. And so, this kind of thing would appeal to me. And then you add the mystery of The Matrix, and then a couple of those other elements that turn it from just being guns and ammo to something deeper that we don't know about. What else is happening here?
Well, let's talk about those elements then, because again, and it's hard to picture this, but we were watching these commercials not knowing the elements that make up the Matrix, the altered reality, the slaves to machine, the manipulating your surroundings because it's the virtual world, the bullet time, the acrobatic kicking and flipping, all of the things that make it a unique film, unique mainstream big time film, and the philosophical ideas behind it. None of that was on my mind yet. None of that was coming through in the film. So let's talk about those elements in the trailer that would have gotten your attention that were new. You mentioned bullet time.
Yeah.
What was that? What is bullet time?
So basically,
silver bullet time with the silver bullet band?
No, not quite.
I'll pass.
Bullet time, as most of our listeners probably know, is this heightened a sense of reality, this heightened moment for a character that sort of slows down time so you can see how they're reacting to whatever's happening. And in this case, it was bullets being shot at Neo, Mr. Keanu, and he is dodging those bullets in slow motion. And that's basically your bullet time. And the camera setup, although I don't think they really get into the camera movement like they do in the movie, where it spins around them in slow motion.
There's one shot of Carrie-Anne Moss kicking somewhere that you see a little bit of the camera
where she jumps up
around.
And is frozen in air for a moment. Yeah,
a little bit. That's odd. But the bullet time, yes, bullet time as a special effect got used into the ground after this movie. Yeah. But it was kind of pioneered for this movie where you're seeing someone move. Yeah, like you're saying, you see multiple bullets in a row because you're stretching the amount of time it takes for the bullet to reach them. And the person, is so fast they can dodge it. So that was different. Yeah. That was new. And what did you think seeing that at the time? Like, what was it's not called bullet time in the trailer, obviously.
No, I mean, I think it only gets referred to as bullet time after the fact when somebody needed to describe it. I don't even know who first coined the phrase. Do you think the filmmakers did, or was that like a critic that did that?
I think it's probably the name of the effect. I do remember shortly after the movie came out, that is how it was referred and discussed. We created the bullet time effect with the cameras and all of that. I guess, but that kind of aside, that I do remember that in the commercials was striking.
Yeah.
But it's a movie of people in long coats spinning around. We've seen that before. John Woo puts his slow-mo seagulls or whatever, doves flying in every scene.
Doves.
So, are they doves?
I'm pretty sure they're doves.
Okay, they're doves. So we've seen stuff slow down. So it looked cool, and I'm sure it got my attention. But I didn't know the idea behind it. It just seemed like a technical effect that may have happened before. There may be shots of a single bullet moving slowly in other films and other TV shows, but that was striking. And it's in the trailer, and it's in it very briefly as a flash of a special effect. So in my mind, I probably thought, okay, science fiction special effects, or action movie. I don't think I was thinking this as a science fiction movie yet. I think I was thinking this is an action movie. Here's an action shot. What else? What else in this trailer kind of hits home?
A couple other elements that would have stood out, and I can't tell you for sure if they stood out for me then. I'm like, it's hard to recall because ever since seeing The Matrix and knowing The Matrix, it's like I live in that world. I know what The Matrix is, so it's hard for me to sort of go back to when I didn't know. But something else that would have stood out, I think, would have been a brief shot of a alien type vehicle. I wasn't sure if it was it was definitely mechanical, but basically it was one of the turns out it's a probe type of ship run by the computers. It had tentacles, that thing with the laser cutting into Morpheus's ship.
The squids.
Squids. Is that what they're called?
Yeah. I think so.
Sure.
That's what I'm calling them now anyways. Yeah, I don't remember that from the trailer the first time I saw it. That's not an image I recall.
Yeah, and again, that's the same thing for me. I don't recall if that stood out for me, but certainly on rewatching it here, it stands out because everything else is like you're saying. It's like this could just be an action movie, and then suddenly that hits, and so I'd be surprised if it didn't stand out for me a little bit and give me some sense of what the movie might entail, but it certainly stood out on this rewatch.
Well, because we know the movie. We know that's an aspect of The Matrix. But yeah, that for some reason surprised me. I did not, because I don't remember seeing that. And that is the kind of thing that I feel like would have gotten my attention normally in a film. So that's in there. So the science fiction angle, and again, I think I knew The Matrix was a science fiction movie as we got closer to the release, but yeah, I would have missed that entirely because it's not an image I had seen before. I had not seen biomechanical squids attack a ship, really, and I wasn't looking for it, so that would have flown under my radar. What else in this trailer is kind of classic Matrix, or is there anything else in it that stuck out to you watching it this time that you're like, oh yeah, that would have gotten my attention back then?
I believe there was like the metal liquid on his hand for a brief moment, or maybe he was touching the mirror and it kind of did the liquidy thing. That stood out and probably would have piqued my interest at the time.
Sure, and I think that would have been, that as an effect, I think I remember almost more than the bullet time. I think you're right, because there was a weird liquidy...
And it was like a T2 kind of thing. It made me think of that effect.
So it is something we had seen. Yeah, that's probably what I would have thought too. So that maybe wouldn't have gotten my attention because Terminator 2 was so sacred to me at that time. I don't think I would have thought it was ripping that off. Something from the trailer that I remember, and seeing it this time, I'm going to probably paraphrase it and say it wrong, but it is the thing that eventually got me to see the movie. As the trailer's playing, and I remember this trailer before I went back and watched it, I was, like you said, I think, I was expecting something a little more mysterious, so maybe it is because we know it.
Right.
My memory is a bunch of weird scenes of the action scenes intercut, and then the voiceover and image, or maybe image, and then the voice covers some other scenes of Lawrence Fishburne saying that unfortunately nobody can be told what's in the Matrix. They have to see it or something like that.
Yeah,
What's
you can't be told
line?
what the Matrix is. You have to see it. Yeah, something like that.
Which is the perfect perfect tagline for what we're talking about. It's like, we can't show you what this is. You're going to have to see the movie. And that line stood out for me because in 1999, I was big into conspiracy theories. And in 1999, I sadly bought and read a David Icke book about how there are reptilians in the government running the world. And sadly, this book, yeah, I think it came out around the same time. Sadly, this idea of the veiled, life behind, the masks that aliens wear or something was something I read about. So they hear that line that you have to be shown what's in it like that. I was like, okay, so there's they live kind of truth to this. Maybe there's something special to this. And that probably piqued my attention because I know as the movie came out, I remember when I finally heard what the plot was. I was at work. I worked at a dentist's office just doing insurance stuff. And one of the dentists was talking about the movie and began explaining the plot. And when he explained the plot, it blew my mind. Like he started talking about how, well, there's another reality and they live in these machines. Like he wasn't doing it justice, but he was kind of hearing him say that, I was like, oh, I just found something big out because that's true. The Matrix, the title of this movie, the long lines of green numbers spelling out everything about it. I didn't know what it fucking was or what it meant. And that was the selling point. And as I slowly started to hear him describe it and moved away, I was like, all right, I got to see this before more people describe it. So I was won over by the movie telling me I had to see it to understand it.
Were you going to see the movie? Or were you now definitely going to see? Was like the movie wasn't maybe a definite for you, but then when it got spoiled a little bit and you found out more about it, that's when you knew you had to see it?
I think so. I mean, I don't think it was on my radar as something to see at the time. I don't think it's the kind of movie I would have gone to see based on what I saw in the commercials.
So the mystery of what is the Matrix didn't really grab you until you got a slight taste of what it actually was, until it was a little bit spoiled for you.
Until I started realizing, because when he started explaining it, because I heard him prompt it as saying like, well, it's kind of, going to give some of it away. Do you want to know what it's about? And he started explaining it. I suddenly realized that, wow, the movie's got something. There is a trick in this movie or a secret that, like, again, the line earlier was interesting, but it didn't hook me. I wasn't going to see this movie. But the moment I found out there was something more to it, that piqued my spiritual interest. That piqued my looking for something bigger interest in what's behind masks and blah, blah, blah. But I still didn't really get what it was about. And then friends of mine saw it and they would talk a little bit about it. So I started getting bits and pieces that, okay, he lives in a computer. I didn't know virtual reality.
So when did you see it? Was it like 2-3 weeks after it came out?
I think I probably saw it a week or two after it came out at that point. Long enough that someone else had seen it. Because that's the thing, too. This movie was a surprise hit. I don't think they expected it to be enormous.
And didn't we have Star Wars coming out soon after that?
Star Wars was coming out 2 months later.
There were other movies. There was a bigger movie being talked about.
And maybe that's it, too. That was on my mind. So this was kind of like, I don't have space for 2 action movies or any other movie. I have this. It'd be a bad year for Ghostbusters 3. But yeah, when I finally saw it, I was excited to see it because now I had a hint of this mystery. And I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the movie. I remember coming out of it and being like, yeah, that blew my mind. And I remember coming out of it wishing I didn't know the little bit that it did. And again, I didn't know a whole lot, but I knew enough that there was a dual reality.
It was effing spoiled for you.
It was a little effing spoiled
but
for me.
It was spoiled enough that you actually went to see it. You may not have gone to see it at that time if you hadn't gotten more of a taste of it, it sounds like.
Except that, I think that except for the reason that the movie became huge. The movie built. It was
No.
Again,
see, I think if you hadn't, I think the timing of that, knowing you, the timing of finding out a little bit more worked. Because if you hadn't found out more and then it got huge, I think, and everybody was talking about it, you probably would have refused to see it at that point. If you had gone too long and then everybody else was talking about it, you might have refused.
I don't know, because it is such a mind-blowing... Like, it's not now. The Matrix isn't mind-blowing anymore. Because we know it. Because it's been discussed. It's been... there's whole philosophy papers written about it. People like to analyze it. You can analyze it.
2 subpar sequels have kind of pulled the magic out of it.
I don't think that's... First of all, I really... It
has for me.
It has, really?
Well, I will still...
The first movie's ruined because they made 2 follow-ups to it.
No, not when you say it like that. But I think, like you're saying...
If I say it backwards, I'm going to cut that. That was dumb.
No, but I think it could have been like the wonder and awe of it could have been accentuated if the sequels had been better or better received anyway. But no, I think
Did it need a sequel?
The awe is still there.
Did it need a sequel to itself at that point?
It didn't need one, but I can see why there were sequels. Obviously, because it became the hit it did. But I mean, you talk about everybody knows what the Matrix is. There is a generation that doesn't know what the Matrix is. My kids don't know what the Matrix is. They haven't been introduced to that yet.
But do you think there's a language that has been introduced to the world that they will? Like they know computers. They know the internet. They will probably hear various lines and things from this where they're entering into it. It's not going to be as much of a leap to be like, oh, he was plugged into a machine and now he's out of it.
That's true. It won't be as much of a leap. I guess that's true.
And is that timing or is that because this movie has saturated the consciousness in a way?
I don't know. I think over time, the Matrix is talked about less and less. I don't think it is in the pop culture world as much as right now anyway, as much as like Star Wars is or as much as the Marvel movies and superheroes are.
No, because they didn't keep making them, but the central idea to it, that concept, which isn't an original concept. I think a lot of us think it's conspiracy thought. There's something working in the shadows. There's something that's not the world we see, and we're seeing an illusion, be it we're being sold on products that don't work well, be it there's a secret cabal government working the world, be it we're all machines, whatever it is. That's an ancient concept. And it's been handed down through society. The Matrix, and again, people can say, well, Dark City did it. Well, the Invisibles did it. Yeah, other things did it. The thing that I think people went and saw and learned how to talk about was the Matrix. So I think its existence as a film, it's like the phrase, may the force be with you. It's like the phrase, live long and prosper. And I wonder, is the Matrix like that their experience with it can't be pure?
Yeah, probably. I'm trying to think because there are things that they watch now that I'm sure have made Matrix references or have had little mini Matrix type action sequences or even just direct ripoff of the Matrix where they've gone into an alternate reality. I guess you're right. Yeah, there's going to be things that it won't be as fresh and new and unknown to them. Yeah.
And also, they're not going to watch it now because they're probably too young to want to watch it.
Yeah, there's still a few years that I think I would wait and introduce it to them.
I feel like The Matrix gave society a way to look at these things at an era where conspiracy theories were big in the 90s. This idea of blankets over our eyes, sheep, and whatever, and you learn,
Didn't Mel Gibson's conspiracy theory movie come out in 1999?
It came out in 1997, but that's okay. He bites Patrick Stewart in the nose, I think, in that movie.
Of course.
And I saw that movie in the theater because I loved conspiracy theories because there's this imaginary feeling that somehow you have the knowledge no one else has, even though it's in a published book. Still, the 90s, I feel like we're with the X-Files, with conspiracy theory, with the net, with these dumb David Icke books, and with the Matrix, and a lot in comics, with everything Grant Morrison wrote for comic books in the 90s. There was an exploration of this. We're getting this idea of there being something behind the screens, and it's in pop culture. Timing-wise, this movie came out at what I think was a growing peak of that. 1999, the last year we can talk about on this podcast. I think it was all kind of reaching a boiling point or something.
Yeah.
That made this movie really feel like we're going to blow your mind, and here it is. And do you think even that idea has any weight to people now? Like you and I are shocked by what the world is. I think I'm speaking for you.
No, you're accurate.
There's this idea that it's become TV program, that, the ruler of this nation right now is a TV star, all the things that we can all say. And we all do say, and that's the thing, we still act surprised by it. We're 2 years in. It's not surprising. We see the path that it took. Do you think The Matrix now takes that path? It's not a surprising movie. You see the trailer, you see the bit, you're like, oh, he's going to be pulled out of a reality because we have that reality now. Yeah. We have online video games, online worlds, The Sims, Bitcoin. We have all these things that mimic in a way, for good and for bad, discussion, whatever, this angle, this science fiction angle. So do you think it would even be possible for, say, like your daughters to grow up never hearing about the Matrix, for it to even have an impact or an effect now, because it's technology based in the movie and maybe that's outdated? Do you think this movie can even be spoiled for them, or is it just old hat that, oh, that's what would happen in this movie?
That's common. That's a good question. It's hard to say. It does seem like it's just more of a reality now. Yeah, like you're saying, it does seem like it won't be. I mean, it might still be a twist in the storytelling of the movie, but the concept, like you're saying, the concept as a whole won't be like a shock like it was for us. Yeah. And yeah, as time goes on too, there's just going to be more that they're exposed to that already exists in a world where the Matrix already exists. And so, yeah, it's just going to be just too common of a pop culture reference for them to be shocked by it.
Because it's pop culture.
Right.
Yeah. So why is the Matrix the one for this? Because again, Dark City came out 2 years prior to it, I think. A lot of people, or 3, I think that's 96 that came out.
I tried watching Dark City 3 times and fell asleep each time.
Well, it all takes place at night. That might be why.
And I would watch it at night.
But a lot of people when the Matrix came out, as before it was building its before it got its foothold as being a groundbreaking movie, there were people saying Dark City already did this. There are a lot of people who say it stole from The Invisibles by Grant Morrison, this series of comic book series he did in the 90s into the 2000s. So these ideas were out there and people were discussing it. Why do you think the Matrix is the one that hit big and is the go-to? I mean, I guess because you stayed awake for it, the reason for you.
Yeah. Well, it was also the one that is most accessible. It had the wider.
Why is it most accessible? Because this concept was way out there when it came out, as was a lot of the filming techniques, what they were doing in cinema for a mainstream movie. And The Matrix is a mainstream movie.
And that's what makes it more accessible. The Dark City was not a mainstream movie. It was a smaller feature. I don't know if I'd call it a foreign film, but it was made overseas, if I'm not mistaken. And
I think you are mistaken.
Yeah.
Dark City?
Yeah. It wasn't more of just an Australian movie? Or am I thinking of something else?
I don't think so. Are you thinking of a movie with Jennifer Connelly and the buildings are moving?
Yeah. But it wasn't a huge studio.
Are you thinking about Gattaca? Are you thinking Gattaca?
No, because Gattaca I think was a big studio movie. I think
they both have Ethan Hawke.
I think The Matrix had more of a studio backing. It was pushed by the studio. More people were going to go see this movie than they were to see Dark City, because Dark City wasn't as widely released. More people were going to see this movie than read The Invisibles, because more people went to the movies than they did buy comic books. And so I think that's why this hit. And it was a good movie. It was interesting. It was full of great effects. It had a story. It was new, and it became a hit. And so I think that's why The Matrix is doing it more so than the things that might have come before it.
Have you seen The Matrix recently? When was the last time you watched The Matrix?
6 years, 7 years ago, maybe. And it was probably on TV, I was probably flipping around and I would come back to it.
Yeah, I have not watched this in a while. Truthfully, I don't think I watched it that much. I know I bought it when it came out on VHS. I bought it right away.
Yeah, I watched it a lot. I watched it a lot when it was on DVD.
Did we watch it together a lot?
I'm sure we did. Okay. I feel like we did.
Yeah, I knew it enough because I know I went back to it. There were concepts that fascinated me, and I'm sure I watched it in the lead up to Matrix Reloaded. But I watched those sequels far more than I watched the original.
Wow.
Yeah, I kept going back to that. God, I really love Matrix Reloaded. We'll have to do a 30th Century Pop podcast so I can talk about that movie, because I and 2 other people seem to really like that one.
That could be a retro shock. I would go back to it. I haven't been back to it since I saw it the first time in the theater.
You never went back to the sequel to The Matrix?
No. And I don't think I've
seen
So is
it self-contained?
I don't think I've seen the third
one. Is it a
one.
self-contained movie?
The first Matrix?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an open-endedness to it, but lots of movies have open-ended endings that you don't go back to.
Like Blade Runner. Before Blade Runner got a sequel, that's a movie that kind of can stand on its own.
Yeah.
And I feel like The Matrix, for everything that I think it's about, it actually, and I think you said this already, so I'm just repeating you to make it seem like I'm giving this closure. For what The Matrix is actually talking about, it does retain some of that mystery when it just ends. When it's the one-time experience.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why these things are spoiled later on, is because even just The Matrix itself, a movie like that was never released. A movie like that was never that big of a hit in March. A movie like that never preceded Star Wars. There were people when Phantom Menace came out who, if they couldn't get into a Phantom Menace showing, went to see The Matrix because it was still playing. I remember that vividly. And I think The Mummy was also on that docket. But there are a lot of things to The Matrix as a film that were so unique just in how it was presented. So the ideas in it and what it's about, these things that weren't spoiled necessarily in the trailer, to tie all that in, seemed new and just blew our minds because we had never seen something represented that way. It didn't look like the kind of movie I wanted to see. And like you said, suddenly I was challenged by the fact that, I'm learning a little bit about the behind the scenes. I got to get into it before it's all ruined. That I probably wouldn't go see it now. There are plenty of movies from the 90s and 2000s that are sci-fi. I'm not going to go see Interstellar. I'm not going to sit through that. I'm not going to sit through the other movie he made about planes. I don't know. I love science fiction. That's the thing. But I don't think I knew this was a science fiction film until I started hearing about it.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of remove ourselves from the existence of the Matrix that we know and try and recall a time before that. It's hard to recall if I thought it was science fiction. I kind of feel like I did, but maybe I didn't. But now it's hard. I can't separate the two.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating that we can't have that experience again. Like, you won't know the answer to that. And nothing can ever be new more than once.
Right.
And I get that. And I don't even know if it's so much spoilers necessarily and knowing too much about a movie as it is. And I'm going to sound really old and cranky for a minute, but it's just to kind of wrap this up. Given the capacity for repeat viewing and repeating the experience of something, which I love doing. I have a wall of DVDs and Blu-rays and VHS tapes that I love going back to. Do you think having The Matrix exist in front of you as more than just a one time of seeing it, that one experience, do you think that spoils it a little bit? Do you think movies themselves, not as being disposable, but do you think there's something to movies existing through time in your mind, not for a new audience, but in your mind, that kind of lessens them a little bit, or lessens maybe the impact? Is that a bad thing, or a detrimental thing, or is it, or not detrimental, but is it changing the medium that we can have and stream these movies multiple times whenever we want?
That is a lot to unfold.
Well, I asked it poorly. Sorry.
No, but I get what you're saying. I don't. Yeah, I don't know. We've talked about this before. I'm less and less a fan of having streaming movies at your fingertip at any moment. My kids have watched the same thing over and over and over again, and I think that does lessen the effect of those movies compared to when we were kids, and the excitement of seeing it maybe once a year if it was rerunning on television or something, or being able to rent it once a month maybe, or even just one time because you got a bunch of people together and you all were like, you need to experience this movie. I think having the streaming does lessen the effect of these types of movies for sure.
Is it streaming or is it repeating it? Because I watched Back to the Future every week for a while when I got it on VHS as a kid. I watched Transformers the movie every week. I watched Ghostbusters every couple of weeks. I kept going back to these things because I had them at the time on VHS, which is just like streaming. You pop it in the VCR. Now I don't have a VCR hooked up, so I stream. But yeah, I tend to gravitate more often. I'm trying to break this a little bit towards things I already know and returning to them. And this is off topic, I realize. I just...
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's great, but because I don't know how your kids experience things. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe just as a kid, however you're experiencing it, you don't have the wherewithal or the grasp of an experience to be like, I'm watching this again and again and again. It's just every time, maybe there is something new to it. Maybe something doesn't get ruined, even though they know it verbatim.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think it depends on the quality of what they're watching too, and their love of it. It's not going to be the same every time. You're only going to have that first time. And so that twist, that surprise, that shock is only going to affect you once. And then you have your feelings about it changes. Your excitement, perhaps, of that moment that you know is coming is about to come up. So that you think about it differently. And then you start watching it and you see the clues. Oh, this happens. This is a sign. Oh, I didn't catch that the first time. How this light changes every time he says this word or something. I don't know. But yeah, there's always going to be new ways to enjoy a good movie and a movie you like. But you're only going to have that first time to be surprised.
I don't know, because I still can rewatch certain things and still get moved by them every time.
Sure, and I'm not saying you can't, but you're moved by them in a different way than the first time.
Maybe. What's from your past, anyways, from the 20th century, is there a movie you really wish you could experience for the first time again? Is there a particular film? I know it's just a question, but
I don't know.
What is it that you'd like to go into and be like, oh my God, I'm experiencing this again for the first time ever?
For the first time. I don't know. There might be other movies, but for some reason, The Fifth Element pops into my head.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I enjoyed The Fifth Element. It was a good experience I had. Out of sight, but that's more of the experience of seeing it. I would just like to do that again. It was not just the movie, but how I saw it.
Because you want to recreate it. I'm just talking about something you could walk into not knowing and just have the emotional connection with again. Not that was, I wasn't being detrimental. It sounds like that was very complicated. Going to see Out of Sight, it was great.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, how about you? What stands out for you?
Well, just as I was asking it, I mean, my first thought was Ghostbusters.
Okay.
Just to go in the Ghostbusters because it was a topic I loved, but was also scared of ghosts. So there was that angle, but just the humor in that movie being something I never heard before and just laughing all the way through and it being about something I enjoyed, the supernatural. So that's something I'd like to experience as if it was new because I didn't know at 9 another comedy like that. But then I was thinking like, and it's one or the other, but Clerks or Mallrats, I think. Probably Clerks because, again, hadn't heard something like that before, but that was the movie that most of anything I've ever seen, and I'm always trying to identify with the characters I like, whatever. That movie and seeing that movie, sitting and watching it and really it just feeling real to me. Not so much I want to be like that character, which is still what was going on, but having that illusion totally shattered, being like, oh, I am that character, which I would do for a lot of things, but it was always like, I want to be Richard Lewis on this show, or I want to be Luke Skywalker in outer space. But this, that feeling of being almost vindicated, where it's like, yes, that's what it's like. And yes, that's how people are. And yes, if it makes for a film, my life's not a failure. If I'm enjoying watching it, I'm going to enjoy living it like that. I would love to have that experience again.
Yeah.
Because now if I try it, it's sad. It's like Californication with David Duchovny or Mark Maron's show, or any of these things where it's like, I guess I want to be that. I don't. But I think it would be Clerks. I think I would like to see and experience Clerks for the first time again.
I'm going to think about that more because I don't think, that'd be interesting. I want to answer that better.
Yeah, I'll listen to you. I don't know if anyone else will hear it. Any other thoughts on The Matrix? We talked about it, right?
Yeah, no. That was
that was the topic.
That was the topic, and as we often do, we just it's spoilers in general as we move through our main topic. So, I am actually surprised. My last thing is just to be surprised that we didn't connect on this when it first came out. We were kind of coming at it from two different things. I didn't realize that. I felt like we both really were into The Matrix at the start, like prior to it coming out. We both were excited about it. I did not realize you had to get a little bit of a push That was interesting to
That's how I
learn.
remember it.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But yeah, I don't remember being excited. But I think you hit, I think, two things. One, it didn't look like the kind of movie I wanted, but I think you're right. It was the year of Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
And someday we should talk about that, 1999, because it was the year of Phantom Menace, so that's all that was on my mind. But once Phantom Menace came out, and once I saw it, I have some great memories of every movie for the rest of that year that we saw. So I think it'd be interesting at some point to use that as a focal point, because, yeah, I bet that was distracting me. 99 is probably a really good year for movies. What a sentence to end on.
Next week on 20th Century Pop.
99, good for movies or just a steakhouse? But yeah, that's Bob's right. Next week, well, in 2 weeks, everyone. Again, 20th Century Pop. That's the show you just listened to. We're gonna try something a little different this year. I think it'll benefit Bob and I, if no one else. The show's going to go bi-weekly, at least for a little while. We're going to be doing it every other week. Same show, same, if you're subscribed to it, you still get to it. If you want to subscribe to it, you can at 20popcast.com. We're going to be doing the show every other week now, and I think we'll interject every now and then with some special bonus episodes or maybe some follow-ups, and who knows? Down the line, it might become a weekly show again, but I think right now, this is what we can do. So this is what we'll do, and what are we doing? We're doing a show called 20th Century Pop, which you can visit at 20popcast.com, where all these segues, bad as they are, lead to. It's the website where you can subscribe to the show if you enjoy it on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, on a bunch of different podcast catchers. You can always hear the most recent episodes streaming right there on the homepage. There are also links to all of our past episodes, so you can check those out. And I would say check those out. I think there's some okay episodes there. You can also find links to follow us on Twitter at 20popcast, on Instagram also at 20popcast. You can drop us a line there. You can find us on Facebook. Bob, what about you? Would you like to plug yourself?
Sure, yeah. Follow me separately from the podcast at RH Canning. And I'll always add, interact. Let us know your thoughts on The Matrix, either on Twitter or Facebook. Let us know if
or in the Silver Bullet Time Band. If you like them.
Yeah, that would be great.
If you like Bob Seger. Is it Bob Seger? Am I right in that?
He's the Silver Bullet Band, yeah.
Silver Bullet Time Band? I hate that band. Oh my God.
That's okay.
What's their big hit? And then I'll let you plug yourself. I'm sorry. Just
what is it? Something about rock and roll. Old time rock and roll?
That's not them.
That's not them?
Oh, is it?
I don't know.
Who sings Against the Wind and who sings Mandolin Rain?
I don't know.
And who sings The End of the Innocents?
I'm looking it up.
And who sings 99 Luft Balloons?
That's Nina, right?
That is Nina. Nana. Or is it Nina? It's not Nana. That's the anime. That's the first anime I ever
Bob
read.
Seger's Against the Wind. Night Moves.
Oh, Night Moves. That's the horrible one I'm thinking of. Does he sing Shakedown from one of the Beverly Hills Cops movies? You're busted. Shakedown, open parenthetical, you're busted.
Isn't that Kenny Loggins?
No, I know it's not Kenny Loggins, but I don't know who sings it.
Old Time Rock and Roll is the one I was thinking of.
That is one of the worst songs ever recorded. I hate it.
Shakedown, breakdown.
That's $40 right
there.
But
that's Bob Seger too.
That is?
Yeah.
Okay.
What a
that's
great band he has.
What a band he has.
Traveling Man?
He has a band. They're a band. That's what I would say. They're a band.
Oh, apparently he also has a song called Horizontal Bop. Or am I looking at something else?
You might be looking at Poison. No, that's Unskinny Bop.
No, there's a Horizontal Bop here. And I'm going to learn more about it after we say goodbye.
Well, let's get to that then. People can check out your blog. Do you still have a blog? Do you still have that going?
It's still out there. People can still get to it. I have not posted anything new of late ever since my car died and I lost my tape player, but I'm looking into getting back into that. But yeah, otherwise I have nothing else to promote. I have not added anything to that blog. I have not added anything to my comic strip. So wow, we're ending this kind of on a downer.
A depressing end to the start of the new year, everyone. 2019, the year of the Bob Seger Silver Bullet Time Band comeback. With Shakedown and whatever song you want to play while you slide into your kitchen and sing into a pickle just like Alf did. And prior to that, I guess, I almost said Tommy Lee Jones, Tom Cruise. And now a special bonus outtake from today's episode. Did you hear that?
Yeah, do you have a canteen?
I do. Well, it's a water bottle, but it's funny you should say canteen because I'm in my Cub Scout outfit. No, I have the creature Cantina, which we now know as Mos Eisley, but didn't for some reason when I had the toy. Also, I didn't know what a cantina was. I just assumed that's where aliens go to drink. And listen to jizz, because that's what the music's called in the Star Wars universe. It's jizz music. They're jizz lobbers. Finger and Dan and the model nodes, they lob jizz or music at a ready-to-listen ear and face. I don't know why, but that is what it's canonically called.
Oh, good Lord. These are things I'm happy not to know.
Did you not know that? That never came up when we lived together? That,
no.
Hey, I'm just listening to some jizz here.
that has never come up. That song has come up, but you never referred to it as jizz.
What's in your bag? Oh, just a couple of jizz albums. My favorite Fingering Dan and the Model Node albums. I've got the one that you know, and I've got the other one that you probably know. Yeah, it's jizz. That's some good jizz.